This is MJ. I love Tokusatsu, and right now I want to talk to you about Kamen Rider 01 episode 38. This is MJ Loves Toku episode 63. I'm doing my big catch-up as this is, I don't know, August 10th or 11th or something like that, and I am rapidly catching up to where 01 is. And I gotta say, this might be my favorite episode so far. I am not going to say that I believe in a redemption arc for Amatsu Gai, but I feel the most sympathetic I've ever felt for him, and I can understand where he's coming from and, you know, what hurt him and how he allowed that hurt to change him as a person. And it's interesting. I really like it. So before I get into specifics, I'm going to let you know this episode was basically titled I'm 1000% Your Friend, which I don't like, but it's okay. It originally aired on July 12th, 2020. Again, here I'm like a month later almost, catching up with it. The writer was Yuya Takahashi, and the director was Ryosuke Sakuno. And I felt like this was definitely a good episode for the main writer to have written, or the head writer of the show to have written, because it specifically featured, you know, a great deep insight into Amatsu Gai, our main protagonist of the show, if you don't count Kamen Rider Arc, and which he's the one that really, you know, birthed Arc by giving it all that bad information about humans and humanity and what they are. But look at what he was exposed to, look at what he was given as a child, look at what he was taught humanity is. Wow. Yeah, I could like go off on this forever, but I'll allow myself a few minutes to wax philosophical, and yeah, I guess philosophical would be the key word here, and then I'll go on to talking about the rest of the episode. Although, let me check out my images real quick to see if this is what I want to talk over or what. No, I was going to point out the dumb joke was dumb. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to talk about the emotional pain and turmoil that, you know, Amatsu Gai felt inflicted by his father, and how this, you know, deep wound that he never recovered from caused him, it, you know, changed the course of his life, and it caused him to be a particular type of person who is willing to hurt other people and who rejects the normal human attachments and realities of relationships that would enable somebody, man or woman, you know, whatever gender you want to say or whatever, to have a healthy relationship with other people. And that's really sad. And I'm just going to throw it out here. If you're interested in this topic, I'm not talking about men's rights, okay? So don't freak out on me. And this may not help you to believe that I'm not talking about that, but I grew up with a bunch of women. I had at one point referred to myself as a feminist, although I think that is a very inaccurate title for what I am, especially with the modern definition of feminism. I kind of ascribe to the, you know, it's the radical idea that men and women should have equal rights and shouldn't be treated unfairly based solely on their sex. But, you know, you talk anymore, if you go into any more detail than that, it gets complicated, and that's not what I'm interested in. I have traditional roles in my family and in my life, and, you know, we abide by those, stick to those, whatever. But that's not what you want to hear. You want to hear me talking about more about Kamen Rider, which I will get to, but I first need to continue with the philosophizing. Anyway, so Amatsu Gai has exhibited traits of what you could call toxic masculinity, and I was interested in the subject for many reasons, and I actually I started reading a book that I never finished, and then I found like a sequel to that book. That book was called King, Magician, Warrior, Lover, and it talks about the 4 different archetypes, psychological archetypes of men. There's a female correspondence as well, but the men who wrote the book were interested in helping men to become better men, to become real men, not you know, violent man babies, or, you know, overly aggressive man babies. And they said that it wasn't masculinity that was the problem. It was a lack of masculinity and a lack of transitioning men or males from being boys into being men, and that failure to go from boys to men was what was the source of a lot of turmoil, and that the demasculinization and the vilification of masculinity by Western-ish, modern-ish society is, kind of what caused a lot of issues. And that if you look at the sources of, toxic masculinity, that there's a lack of true masculinity, and that masculinity should have a positive aspect to it. And they also argued, I think, in that book, that if there's such a thing as toxic masculinity, then there's such a thing as toxic femininity. And anyway, might be a subject you want to explore for yourself. Again, that book is called King, Magician, Warrior, Lover. And then they actually they were going to make 4 more books, specifically focusing on one book per archetype. And then they were going to, then they made a book called, I think it's called The King Within. And that was really interesting. That was really interesting because that was a audio book available. Anyway, I have a much easier time consuming audio books than I do books I have to read with my own eyes. And anyway, that book was very enlightening to me. And the ultimate point of the book is that in order for men to be who they should be, they need to look at themselves and examine their lives. And you're welcome. And basically challenge themselves to do things that are difficult for them to do. And that could be anything from quitting smoking or, I can't really think of any good examples off the top of my head. But for Amatsu Gai, if we examine him through this perspective, we can see that one of the hardest things for him to do is to let people in. One of the hardest things for him to do is to trust another human being, trust another person, and to feel like he can rely on them. And that came from a wounding that came at the hands of his father. You need to take that back. Anyway, a wounding that came from the hands of his father. And then if you want to get deeper into the rabbit hole, so to speak, there's a book by a Christian named John Eldridge. It's called, Ransom Heart. It's Ransom Heart Ministries. It's something like that. Anyway, you can look it up, John Eldridge, something about heart and masculinity in men. And I found that book to be very enlightening. It's something that I read and some people I know read. And it was very interesting. And it talked about all the nuanced aspects of what it is to be a man and how positive that can be. And I think the positive manly characteristics are something that are embodied by some of the other characters in the show. Fua had a lot of issues in the beginning, but he's rounded out. He's begun to show other aspects of himself. And Aruto was kind of a jokester, and he would line up more with like the fool archetype. And but he's thrust in this position of like a king. And a lot of these things can be related back to the hero's journey, and kind of if you look at the like the way it's defined in like the tarot system, it all blends well together because of the use of the broad archetypes and how it using those systems you can see how one moves through the archetype through the archetypes as life stages, and how it kind of tracks with their growth as a person. And again, this can be applied to both men and women, and that's something important to recognize. So anyway, I think Aruto has come more and more into this role as like a warrior, and he's supposed to be the president of his company. So there's this aspect of kingliness, and like even in this episode they talked about what the responsibility and what the position of being a king means. And it means, at least in the perspective here in the episode, that you have a responsibility being in this position to do right by the people who are subject to you, the people under you. And you have a responsibility to do what's right, even if it costs you. And that if you fail to do that, then even though you're nominally in this position, that you have no right to remain in that position. Now I'm interested to see, and I don't want to speculate, what will happen with Amatsu Gai being friends with Aruto and trying to help him at the end to fight off, to to fight off the arc. Because, like, I personally don't think he deserves a redemption arc. As I've said before, he's a very, very well executed villain, but the extent of his villainy is so dramatic, and he's done so much that I don't feel like he warrants any real chance for redemption and for him to live a happy, peaceful life after all that he's done. I'm not saying I need him to die. I'm not saying I need him to die fighting the arc, but it'd be interesting if he, who was wounded by his father and who is senior to Aruto and who tried to teach him and coach him in what it is to be a president over a company, tried to teach him what it's like to be a king in this sort of role, ended up dying to protect Aruto, whose Humagir father died protecting him as a helpless child. And I just kind of think that would be interesting for the end of Amatsu Gai's arc, is for him to become another type of father to Aruto Hiden, who he had seen as this enemy and usurper to the company that he loved and that he wanted to take over. I think that would be really interesting. I think that would do a lot to serve his character, to give him that full arc, but also not to let him off easy and to just let him basically get whatever he wants by being fully redeemed, like I don't know who, but just it would be an unsatisfying arc for me. Let me see. I really loved the robot. I love the little robot dog. I loved it in the past. I loved it in the present. Seeing the different versions of it, knowing that thing was called Thouser. I wonder if Thouser, the name, came from... I wonder if that was the name he gave it to it, or if that was the name it was given by Hidden Industries or Hidden Intelligence. And I don't know, I think it was adorable, and seeing his bond and his affection for this dog, him as a child, and seeing his father be so cruel to him and reject him so much. Oh, and his dad, hold on, was his dad wearing all white too? Oh, that's nasty. His dad was wearing all white, so he's trying to copy his dad and be that 1000% man that his father wanted him to be, and that I would assume he demanded of himself. That is some nasty psychology playing out, but it totally works for him. Anyway, but the little Thouser dog was cute and adorable, and it was nice that I and Zaya were able to break through to him, this bad man, not by attacking him and calling him out for being a bad man, but by appealing to his humanity and by extending that olive branch and by tenderness and, kindness. And let's go there, since we're talking about gender dynamics and, sexual differences. In order to redeem this, bad man, these feminine, soft qualities were used, and those were the things that were finally able to break him down. Although he was put in that position where he was softened up, so to speak, by Aruto defeating him and disarming him and, taking off his belt and stuff, which was super, super cool to see. And I think it's interesting, or it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens with Aruto and where he's going to go next in his hero's journey, which I would say he's definitely on one. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. There was lots of cool stuff that happened. There was some... I was going to kind of trash talk some stuff, but I don't really feel like doing that now. I'd rather feel like focusing on the positive elements. Although I gotta say, the entrance of Thouser and Thouser, the double Thouser entrance, was really cool. That dog skidding like Easy did, was super funny. Super funny, and I don't know if it's actually clever or not, but I kind of feel like it was. So I'm gonna give it to the show and say congratulations to the team, whoever wrote that scenario, whoever put it together. Y'all did a good job there. Gosh, I don't know what else to say. I like how brutal Arc is. I mean, we've seen that before. He's bringing the pain. But I don't know. I don't really have much else to say, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there and say that I'm excited to see 39, and I'm hoping I can get all caught up this week, the week of August, whatever it is, 10th or something, and then we'll see where I go with the rest of the show from here. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, and share to help me grow. Don't forget to subscribe to keep current with each release. Chat with me on Twitter at MJ_scribe. Visit mjmunoz.com/podcast to find the multiple feeds in which I analyze Star Wars, tokusatsu, comics, and more. Visit mjmunoz.com/support for links to my Redbubble and Coffee pages so you can help keep me doing the things I do. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Until next time, be well, and remember, you don't have to shout henshin to be a hero.